Good evening. All right, good evening. This is Omega Black Writers Live. We are a group of members of the Omega Sci-Fi fraternity that have presented. This is our fourth installment, bringing to you writers that are members of our organizations that have all published works of literature. We wanted to give them the opportunity to talk about their works and promote scholarship, which is one of our cardinal principles, and encourage more reading, and those that have a story to let them know what they need to do to bring that story to life. So let us get started. And I'd like to start with introductions and tell us about your book. Miguel Sanchez, please.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate just being able to have this platform. Just to introduce myself, my name is Miguel Sanchez. I'm a former member of the 82nd Airborne Division. I'm a Gulf War vet paratrooper and a serial entrepreneur. I've owned a themed restaurant called Hip Hop Cafe. I've owned a nightclub. I've owned a paint color finishing business. I own the third largest minority-owned mortgage banking company in the United States in the early 90s. So I've done quite a bit in entrepreneurship. So I wrote this book specifically for entrepreneurs or those thinking of becoming an entrepreneur as a motivational tool and a common sense approach to how to become successful, what it actually takes, the type of habits you need, your time management is one. It's a funny thing because rich people and poor people both got 24 hours in a day. So it's just how you use them. So how do you use those 24 hours? So there's a chapter on time management, as well as a spiritual chapter, and quite a few others. But that's just a brief introduction of who I am and what the book is all about. And I'll let you take it from there, Brother Holiday.
Okay, and can you share with us, I may have missed it, the title of your book?
The title of the book is called Make It Happen by Miguel Sanchez. It's a guide to making your dreams come true. So whatever you want to do in making happen, or whatever you want to make happen in your life, be it family, business, financial, whatever it is, this book will show you the way.
Okay, outstanding. And let us move to our next speaker. Charles Clemons, will you introduce yourself and tell us about your book?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And thanks for hosting this event, Brother Jerry. My name is Charles Clemons, and I've had the privilege to serve as a pastor. I presently serve as a chaplain within the hospital systems. I've worked in relief and development in Africa and some portions of Eastern Europe. And the book is titled Undivided, a biblical response to what divides us. And so I was motivated, and still am, to just look at just the deep roots of our divisions in America and searching the scriptures for practical answers that people can be more united as a nation, as a people. And so that's a little bit about myself in the book.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that very much. And next, Glenn Hunter, please introduce yourself and tell us about your book.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Glenn W. Hunter, and my book is Storytelling Wins the Best Engagement. Storytelling Wins the Best Engagement. And what my book is about, it's a business book, but it's incredibly digestible. How do you get more customers? How do you get more people to buy your goods? And I give tips on that and how do you engage them. And because at the end of the day, if you're able to engage them and you feel warmth and you can make that connection, you're able to sell more and be more successful. I give you that path through my book.
Okay, outstanding. We do appreciate that. And our last but not our least, author Wilson Simmons III, please introduce yourself and tell us about your book.
Yes, Wilson Simmons III. And the book that I wrote was called Caring for Parents and Other Loved Ones. It's a guide for the 21st century. I went over Lambda chapter in 1965. I'm also a veteran, a Vietnam veteran, graduate of, have a bachelor's from Cal State University, Los Angeles. And the reason I wrote the book is I had the opportunity to care for my mother for the last 5 years of her life. And I put that at the top of all the things I've accomplished. And it's, when you work on something and you're doing something to help someone, you want to be able to share that information. And that was the genesis for me, creating something as a guideline for all of us that if we're fortunate enough to reach our 80s, even 70s for a lot of us, you need the guidelines. You need to know where to go to get help. And that's what this book provides.
Okay, all right, appreciate it. I'm going to stay with you since you have opened the door to our next question and discussed it a bit. What was the, you mentioned caring for your mother during the latter years of her life. So what made you translate that experience into writing? What was your motivation in that experience to make you want to write this book?
Yeah, it just so happens that I had finished writing my first book and it was picked up by Putnam Publishing.
Okay.
And because it was distributed around the United States and all the bookstores and all the libraries, my literary agent said, I need something from you. You're real hot. You're in all these newspapers and magazines. And so since I was taking care of my mom and, trying to get my family involved, and anyone that's had to care for a parent or a loved one, you realize that all the friends and family members are all of a sudden very busy. Right? And so I found myself, instead of being angry about that process, because you think you have to push them away to get them to help. Everyone has something else to do. And so I started thinking about that after my first month and a half, just me, of how do I get the family involved? And so what I did is I got rid of the anger and called each family member, and I created something. I'm like, I know you're busy, you're flying. Can you give me a weekend that you can take care of mom? Not this month, but next month or the following month. So, I asked others, I said, listen, how mom loves to go to mass. Can you give me a Sunday? So I started doing that with different people, and I got family involved, and they were coming through the house. And so I wanted to share that information. Most people are not familiar with in-home supportive services, which is something that if you're taking care of a parent, they're likely to have Medicare. And that's just something that's available that very few people tap into. And so I took that along with finding a caregiver, which is as difficult as the process itself of caring for a loved one, and provided some guidelines for those that are going to face that information. And so I wrote, 3 chapters, and I sent it to them and to my literary agent. She said, "Oh, Wilson, I like it, but I don't think we're quite ready for that now." So it took me almost 10 years to get back on that horse. And, I just, bathed in the glory of the first book, and then finally got on to caring for parents. And it was, I had a chance then to go through that whole process from the beginning to the end. And if you've had to care for someone older, you get a chance to see all the steps that they go through, from blaming everybody. That woman took my scarf, she stole this, she stole it. And it's just part of it. And I've talked to friends, and everyone does that. So it gave me a chance to write and talk to other friends, and eventually, just wrote the book. I took 4 months off and went down to Brazil, and had a friend of mine lived. His wife is Brazilian, so they set me up with an apartment, and I spent that 4 months after gathering all the information, writing the book. But it was quite the journey. Can't hear you.
I just
Hello,
put
hello.
my,
Oh,
no, I'm good. Okay, Glenn Hunter, tell us about your inspiration of writing your book.
Well, what really inspired me is the fact that I'm an entrepreneur. So I have the ability to, I have to eat what I kill or kill what I eat. But I got into this writing position because I was doing things like blogging and communicating with clients and helping them articulate their value proposition a lot more. And I thought I could put a framework to that so that it's easier for them to communicate, not just to connect, but to actually sell. And again, back to my prior point, storytelling becomes that conduit that connects people. It connects cultures, and it definitely connects people who are looking to buy. If I can get you to buy my story, to understand my perspective, now all of a sudden, I'm not just someone hawking goods towards you, I'm someone who's helping you solve a problem. So I bring in that entrepreneurial perspective, but it's also a personal perspective. I didn't bring this up in my opening comments, but one of my proud contributions to Omega Psi-Phi is I'm a founding brother at UC Berkeley, Epsilon Mu chapter. So actually had to persuade the administrators not to throw us off based off reputation before we got started. But we also have had an enormous number of brothers who have done incredible things. Some of them actually will be joining these panels as a result of it. But the point I'm driving toward is the fact that that connectivity you're able to get by emotionally connecting, getting people to see your story, getting people to understand that you have their best interest makes it that much easier as a salesperson, makes it much easier for them to buy, and you're able to enjoy success as a result of it.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you. And Charles Clemons, tell us, what was your motivation in writing your book?
Yeah, I have a couple of motivations, but one of the main ones was growing up in the church. I'm a proud member of the Black church growing up as a kid. Some of the best experience I had in my life between hearing the stories from the pulpit to eating during those potlucks. But one of the things that I often go back to is just those lived experiences of the church mothers and family and friends who made their migration from the South, family from Georgia, and who could draw a line between what the Bible said and about daily life. And so thinking about those individuals over the years, James Farmer, C.T. Vivian, of course, Dr. King, and many others, their stories and their illustrations would just draw pictures. And quite frankly, my passion to see the church speak on the issues of racism and also the divisions that we have rather than being silent. And so that got me fired up, as well as just my own lived experiences, whether it be growing up in New Jersey or my experiences in release and development or living in California and wanting to give voice to these issues, particularly for the future, for our children. So those are just a bit of the motivation, but definitely hearing those lived experiences from many of the elders who went on before me.
Oh, okay, outstanding. Appreciate you sharing. And Miguel Sanchez, share with us your motivation for writing your book.
Well, mine is much simpler than all the other authors. I was just broke. I didn't have any money, and I needed a job. That's exactly what happened. I needed a job, and a company flew me out to their location to interview me. And then they put me up in a hotel, interviewed me, and at the end of the interview, I just blew them away, told me I was hired on the spot. So I fly back home and get prepared to get ready to move to this part of the country. And about 3 days later, they said, we changed our mind, we're going in a different direction. And I decided at that moment that I would never let someone else control my destiny. So I created a study path. I started researching what was it that successful people do? What is it that they do that's different from other people that keeps them successful, and how do they get there? So I studied it, I researched it. I even went down to quantum physics to figure out the atom of what makes up a human being and put it all together, and then came up with a plan of what it took to be able to become wealthy and successful, or whatever that thing is that you want to become successful at. And my life turned. And now look, I tore the rearview mirror off my car because I ain't looking back. I ain't never get a job. So that is what inspired me. So that one woman, actually, I meant to put her in the introduction to thank her for having me write this book, because she was the one who inspired me. She called me and said we went another direction. So that's why I did it.
Okay, outstanding. Let's stay with you, sir. Let's talk about your journey of writing your book, and tell us about that process and things that you could recommend to others who want to follow that path.
Well, as the other authors on here know, that it's a tough love. I just started writing, and look, when I started writing, I had hair. So after I finished, I ain't having it. I'm just joking. But it was a long, arduous journey. I started writing, and I hadn't really made it happen for myself yet. So I was developing the methods of what I was trying to put in place to be able to become successful as I was writing. It took 5 years to write this book, and then another 2.
We might have lost Miguel. Miguel, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're muted though.
I'm back. Well,
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me
continue.
now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, I was saying that it took 2 years to get published, but I looked for several different publishers, and I did find 1 or 2 that offered me a publishing deal, but I didn't like the deal. And I went to a fraternity brother here in Las Vegas, a Kappa Psi chapter, and he had written a book, and he suggested his publisher. And when I sent like 1, 2, or 3 chapters to them, and they just loved it. They just said, we want to put this out right away. And the moment that I did, it took just a few months after that, and I was on the shelf.
Okay, outstanding. Let's move on to Brother Clemons. Tell us about your journey from writing your book, your manuscript, and to also getting it on the shelf.
Yeah, great question. For me, it started out really just a burning passion in my heart to just look at this thing of racism from the Bible. My faith is Christian, and I just felt that and believed that Jesus was being misrepresented in the media. It was more of a political Jesus as opposed to the God of the Bible. And so I began to just compare from the Greek to the Hebrew, the words that would most closely be associated what we see today, whether it be discrimination or injustice, and just began to do really a reference study of the scriptures, and came across a lot as related to justice. And so over time, and somewhat even in a bit of a cathartic way, began to just write notes and then draw out principles, whether it be from passages of scripture that were stories or direct commands. And it's amazing just over the course of time doing that research, seeing that the word of God, the Bible, has a lot to say about how we treat our fellow man. And so beginning to look at those general themes, came up with 5 principles, which are in the book, and specific teachings, and find principles and ways to use it. And so that was a bit of the journey. And then as for sitting down, had a team of folks that were willing to read through it. Some of them related to me, some within my church, and just some friends who were willing to make that commitment to read and ask questions back. And since then, I was able to move forward and get it published through Equip Press, which is a subsidiary of Outreach Magazine, which works with a number of Christian churches and in general with the community. So the process really just for me started from the heart, combing scripture. And let me just say this other thing really quickly, really looking at history, going back to early American experience and really going back to world history. How does this thing of ethnic hatred show up across cultures? And then what are the words and terms that were used and how that's perpetuated within society? So a great deal of research, a great deal of looking at principles, and then sitting down and working through the process of writing and having people proofread and give me feedback. And sometimes, you know, pushing back on what was there and asking questions. So that's a bit of the process.
Okay,
Yeah.
outstanding. What, just to let you know, and all the other writers, we're running real good on the time. So I'm going to likely come back and ask you about your specifics in terms of getting your book published. So just be aware that near the end here, we're going to probably pose that question to you. But let's move on to Glenn Hunter and tell us about your process of getting your book written and that what has worked for you and what you would suggest to others. You're on mute, Glenn. Glenn, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Brother Holiday. Make sure people don't hear me talking to myself. But my approach with storytelling was the best engagement was the fact that I wanted to, because it had a very strong business core, I wanted to treat it as something that was very actionable. So it doesn't read like a novel. I'm not connecting ideas from the perspective of trying to get a moral to a story, but the idea is to give you facts and to give you tools to reach your business goals. So it's not a textbook, but it's more of a group of anecdotes that point in a direction that says, this will help you achieve your goals in business. This is how you connect with customers. This is how you sell more. These are proven tools that will help you. So the idea is I identified what I felt were literally 8 very critical tools that you wanted to be able to hang on to that you could instantly apply to growing your business or to sell more. So, I talked about your belief. What is it that you're passionate about? Your position in the marketplace. What's your advantage? Who are your prospects? Do you connect well with them or you just talk at them? Who are your customers? Do they love you? Who's in your network? Who's vouching for you? Are you in the right industry? Not all industries speak the same language. What about the public? What does the public say about you? What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? And then how do you bring all that together so that you're the thing that they want to do business with? You're the object. You're just being a conduit to a good that will make them happy. But that's really how I approached it. And that's what the writing points to. And the whole idea is to get success tactics into business people's hands. And
just to follow up on that, how long from start to finish did it take you to write your book?
About four, a little under 5 months, about 4.5 months. Okay. And the idea being, you just grind. I mean, a lot of coffee, a lot of late nights.
Okay, very good. All right, and Wilson Simmons III, you already mentioned that you went to Brazil, and I'm assuming you said for 4 months, so you completed that book within that time frame. So what was your methodology in writing your book while you were there? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, it took me a little longer because part of it was compiling information. I had somewhat of a framework of what I wanted to say. And, I spent a lot of time in library and just collecting and talking to a lot of people that were doing the same thing. So I had the framework and I went down to Brazil and I set myself up to write from 6 o'clock in the morning to 1 p.m. And that was just my daily Monday through Friday. And then the weekends I would, explore, what I could in terms of Salvador Bahia. But what happened is you start that, and there are days where you can't stop. And those days I wouldn't do, like I said, from 6 to 1, then I would go out and have a beer and just sit on the beach. But when those days came there, you just couldn't stop. So I wrote the whole book. Of course, I had the framework in that 4 months. And then it was a matter of coming back and editing and then sending it to an editor and then going over that again. So it took me basically a year and a half, somewhere in there, at least from the time I started for, being self-publishing.
Okay, very good. And let's stay with you. Tell us, and it seems kind of obvious to me based on the information you've shared. Tell us why people should and what the benefits of people to buy your book.
Yeah, part of the benefit is we're all going to travel this road if we're fortunate. So it's either about your wife or somebody in the family having to take care of you, because if we're fortunate, we're going to be there. We're going to go, and whereas the time when we're young, we can remember everything. When you get old, you forget it all. I'm doing that now, just thinking about something. I used to have this thing where now I'm like, I don't know, man. So you see it happening. You see it happening to, I see it happening to a couple of my friends right now that were these bright bulbs, and now they need help. One has his family helping him, and the other is a dear friend of mine who needs help. He needs help because he walks slow. And the book that I have gives you avenues to find help, because there's so many people out there that want to help. And the difficult thing first is finding a caregiver, because, we have more old people now than we've ever had in our history. I mean, it's just the way it is. People are living longer. And so this provides, where to get help, how to get help, what are you looking for? And then add that to what in-home supportive services, and there are other groups that provide help. And in many cases, you'll have to supplement what in-home supportive services will give you. Because I think even in my time, it was $9, and I think they're now around 10 or 11. And no one's going to work for that. And when you go on the low end, that's what you get coming interviewing for the job, right? You have some people come look like they need help, right? But that's just the nature of the beast. But for me personally, it was something that I'm most proud of all the things I've done in my life. I'm more proud of that my mother was happy and that she was able to actually see my first book, Inside Corporate America, that was dedicated to her. She was at the big book signing to see that. And people were coming over to her in the wheelchair. And so that's part of it. And so if you're writing, because a lot of people say, well, damn, Wilson wrote a book? Shit, I'm writing one, right? Which is good. But once you get into doing it, I mean, if it's not a labor of love, it'll kick you off the chair. These guys know. So it's, well, I went through it. Everybody goes through it. It's hard. It's hard just from the basics. And if you're not writing every day, if you miss a day, it's that much harder to get back on. But once you finish one, then it's in your blood. Like, it's, people are asking me to write another, and I'm doing something very similar to this. So yeah, it's what we all need. or will need, and all the places that you can go. I shared a little bit about some of the things that I think we all go through, and that is, making that decision to become a caregiver. That's big. I mean, because most people send their parents to a home. Like, well, thanks, hon, and I'm gonna keep the house, but I'm gonna send you over here. So, the challenges, the daily challenges of being a full-time caregiver, regulating diet and exercise, and reaching out to others. I shared some of that information of how I reached out, and I was trying to be clever and just, rather than say, come help me, I'm like, tell me, look on your calendar, what weekend do you have? So if you work around that, you can get people to help you. If you just say, come help me, they avoid you like the plague. And so, but for me, this was a labor of love, and I had friends that would call me, oh, where are you with that book, man? I'm taking care of my mom. Right? She thinks people are stealing from her. I said, they all think that. They all think that. And my mother was so certain that the woman I was caring for took her scarf. She said, oh, she took it. She took it. I said, Mom, I don't think she did, And she said, yes. So once I got it out of the dryer once, we had this mirror on the closet, and I put the scarf around her. And then when I said, oh, Mom, you look cute today, she looked and saw the scarf and she could not stop laughing. Now you've heard that expression, she laughed until she peed, she did. But you have to figure out ways yourself to be clever with this and how you handle that. And you have to be, because I think about my journey, growing up in Compton, and my mother did it all. I don't know how she did it. And I was honored. People say, how could you do that? I was honored to care for my mother.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay, and let's, Glenn Hunter, tell us why people should and the benefit to those in terms of purchasing your book.
At the end of the day, the reason someone should buy my book is it gives you actionable tools to move yourself forward in business. The bottom line is, if you can connect with people, if you can tug on their heartstrings, if you can get them to see the world through your lens, they're more likely to do what you ask them to. You've shown them a way for them to be better. And this book gives you the tools to do that. And I think that's why I think people should buy my book, available on Amazon.
Okay, you beaten me. I'm gonna come back and ask you to do that, but okay, that's all. Doesn't hurt. You're a business guy. Okay, Charles Clemons, tell us why people should buy your book.
Yeah, people should buy my book if they really want to get to the heart of the matter of racism. If we want to fight and argue in the family and not really solve the problem, that's easy to do. And we see fighting not just within families, we see fighting across ethnic groups, and we have a history. We have a history of injustice, no doubt. But we all have to somehow work to a place where we can at least have some amount of civility. And so in buying the book, it gets to the heart of the matter. And I encourage folks to read it. There's not just principles in there. There's stories where people have been able to find common ground based off of these truths that's presented, real life situations. And so it gives examples that really affect the heart. Because if the heart changes, everything else changes. I've yet to see anybody be persuaded by me yelling at them, no matter how hard I try. I mean, they may say yes for a little while till they have something to come back and yell at me with. But it's different and from my faith, when the Holy Spirit gets a hold of a person's heart, and from the heart, there's a genuine conviction that, this person is a child of God just like me. And we could disagree all day long, but that person deserves dignity and respect just like I do. And so being able to meet on those principles, image of God, the justice of God, the compassion of God, just to name a few. And there's ways to go forward with genuine heart change and efforts to talk about our differences. So that's why you should buy my book.
Okay, and Brother Clemons, I will say this, we need you at every chapter meeting.
Hey, well, let me say this. I'll share a story. My father pastored for years, and it's not just chapter meetings, but there's fights sometimes in the church. And I'll never forget when my dad said to my mom when she was fed up with all this fussing, he said, Cherry, to my mother, those are God's people. And that was his way of just recognizing the dignity of all people. And so sometimes it would be a statement just like that. This person belongs to God, so you can't put your hands on them. Unless, of course, you're in the military or assigned to that task, but you get the point. Everybody deserves dignity and respect. And starting from that place, a lot can happen. So, yeah, appreciate you, Brother Jerry.
Okay, absolutely. And Miguel Sanchez, tell us why people should buy your book.
Well, people should buy my book because I need a jet. I want my own plane because I'm tired of flying commercial. I'm just playing. I joke a lot, but in this book, I want y'all to know that. Let me tell you this. First of all, Joe Frazier said that all of us are like a blind person standing on a corner. And at some point in our life, we need to be helped across the street. And that's kind of what this book does. If you are unsure of what your next move is, and that includes that if you are at the point where you are comfortable, like most of us probably on this call are comfortable. We got beds to lie in, we pay our bills, but we want to go to the next level. This book gives you the tools of how to be able to go to the next level. The second reason is if you don't know really what your gift is, and we are all blessed with one. I don't care who you are, I don't care where you are. We all have a gift. And at the end of the day, we all have one goal. And that goal is basically this. We all just want to be able to wake up in the morning and do whatever it is we want to do. So if you want that private jet and go to Dubai and go to Bora Bora and the Maldives and come back home to your mansion and wherever it's going to be, then if that's what you want, you can do that. Anything that you want that is good, that is a thought that comes to your mind, is God telling you in advance that it's already yours. It's already yours. This book will tell you exactly how to put those barriers to the side and how to get to where it is that you want to go. How to release that fear, how to take the brakes on while you're driving. Some of y'all driving with brakes on you put the parking brake on. This takes the parking brake off so that you can reach your ultimate goal. Dreams bigger than you ever thought that you could achieve. We all can do it. Because of that gift that you were given, what you're supposed to do is figure out what that gift is and then use that gift as your currency. And the third reason is simply this. When you purchase this book and you read it and you actually start to change your life, you actually start pivoting or you change the trajectory of your life. So now you have the light shining on you, and now the people around you can actually see that the light can also shine on them too. You give other people permission to be successful also by watching you do it. So the book tells you about habits, timetables, your time management. It tells you about trying to find your passion, your purpose. It tells you about turning off the TV. I give you a common sense, down and dirty, real world way of being able to do what it is that you want to do day by day. And the biggest part is that this book tells you how to start doing it tonight. When you get off this Zoom call, you can make every day January 1st. It's all in your mind. That's why you should purchase my book.
Okay, outstanding. Okay, we are going to just do some PSAs. This again is Omega Black Writers. This is the fourth the series where we have presented members of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity who are all published writers and give them an opportunity to share with you their experience in writing and getting their books published, we're going to go back to them with a follow-up question specifically on that. But we do ask that you support these writers, and because they're not compensated for their time tonight. In fact, they have each donated signed books of signed publications that we will be sending out to you attending. If you register and if you attend tonight, we will have a random drawing and we will be sending out these books. So please support them, and also know that these writers are located, not just these, but being our fourth, we have writers located all over the country, from California to Connecticut, even though I think he moved, but we have from coast to coast, Texas, the DMV, Michigan, and points in between. So if you need a speaker, as you can see, they are experts on a variety of fields, in business, in religion, in caretaking, healthcare. We have writers who have written on professional sports, personal security. So we have what you need. If you need a speaker, or if you just want to bring them in for a book signing, you can reach any and all of our writers on Omega Black Writers, our social media, either on Instagram and or Facebook. On our Instagram, we do have some extensive Instagram lives that were posted with each writer that you can actually look at an extended interview with them and make that great decision to bring them in for as a program speaker. Education, let's not forget, we as in our organization, our second cardinal principle is scholarship. So we have a number of people who are in education at all levels. So if you need any of those persons in those fields, please consider them. Again, you will not be disappointed. And at this time, I do want to take a moment to thank the Omega Psi Phi fraternity for allowing us to be true, faithful, good members, but also the members of the Kappa Psi chapter and our bosses, Dr. Andre Denson, who is a great supporter of this program, and his predecessor, Jamon Kearney, who happen to both be educators. And I do want to recognize the 12th district of Omega Psi Phi, which represents the 10 most Western states, and our district representative, Brother Kwame Dow, who is a supporter of this event and also an excellent leader for the district. So with that, let's get to this additional question. And we're going to go back with Miguel. Miguel, the question that we're wanting to know is, we talked about your book, why they should buy their book. So let's talk about this. Where can they buy your book? And then also let us know, you've gone through that process at this point. So share with people, if you had to do it again, would you do it the same way, or what would you recommend based on your experience with getting your book published of what you might do differently? Okay.
Well, to answer your first question, here's the book. It's called Make It Happen, A Guide to Making Your Dreams Come True. You can purchase it on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and also BarnesandNobles.com. So there's plenty of distribution hubs out there to be able to get it. I think that it arrives quicker through Walmart. As far as the doing it again, and I would probably do like some of the other authors, maybe get a literary agent. I might get a ghostwriter. It's a very, very arduous task, very tedious, time consuming. And all these brothers on this panel definitely know it is a grind to do this. And you have to be consistent over a long period of time. And there's a lot of research that goes into it. But there are easier ways to be able to get it done. So doing it again, probably would probably hire a ghostwriter, do it that way, and with a literary agent.
Okay, all right, outstanding, appreciate that. All right, Charles Clemons, tell us where we can buy your book, and if you now haven't gone through the process, what would you do differently, or what do you suggest in terms of a process for someone who's interested in being published?
Yeah, thanks, Brother Jerry. Well, it can be Undivided can be purchased at Amazon.com. It can be purchased through churchleaderstore.com, barnesandnoble.com, Walmart.com as well. And there's forms of it in paperback and Kindle. And so those are some of the ways to get it. So what I would say, if I would to do it over again, I would seek out more help just in terms of a plan with marketing and promotion. I think my focus was mainly on the writing part, and in some ways, just getting out what was in my heart, quite frankly. But as I went along the way and began to look at the audience being, in many senses, the church, but also those interested in theology and the history of America, it just became clearer and clearer that I needed more of a developed plan. I'm grateful for how it's been received and opportunities to speak and really touch on it. And like brother Miguel, haven't quite got that jet yet, but if someone decides to drop it there, but anyway, so that being said, it was a labor of love. It was something, and it still is something I'm very passionate about. I serve in multi-ethnic churches, and so the information that I have, I share it regularly. So long story short, or to draw it to a close, I would say taking time to develop more of a plan and reaching out to individuals for the marketing, promotion, and really going through the editing process and having more of a team assembled versus doing a lot solo. So that's what I would say.
Okay, and for those viewing, please be aware that we will do a Q&A. I see that we do have some questions in the Q&A queue. So if you have a question, please post it there and we will address it as we close. And we will address all questions as long as our writers are willing to stay. So please post those. Okay, Glenn Hunter, tell us where we can purchase your book and what you might do differently, or if you recommend your path to anyone that's looking to become published.
Again, Storytelling Wins the Best Engagements is available on at Amazon.com, both paperback as well as the Kindle version. I think the thing that I've taken away from the experience is it's critical to get words on pages. You've got to get the words on pages. You can always remove them, you can change them, but you got to get them on pages. And there's only one way to do that, and that is, whatever method you're using to type, dictate, but it has to be done consistently. The thing I also think I would do different is some of the feedback I received today really reinforced it, is bouncing ideas off of colleagues. I have to say, as a younger writer, I was very arrogant. I have the answer. I have all knowledge. And once I publish, the whole world will know that I have all knowledge. You guys have already taught me a few things today, so there's some humility. But I think it's important that that you do put the best idea forward. You do compete to get your message out. And forums like this does a great job. So I have to just sort of bow my head to Brother Holiday bringing us together, because I think it makes all of us better writers.
Okay, outstanding. I do appreciate that. And Wilson Simmons, the third, please tell us where your book can be purchased. And well, you have an interesting story in that you have published multiple books. And the first book was published through Putnam, which is a major publishing house. And the second book is self-published.
Self-published.
So tell us about, you've done both. What would you recommend to those out here who are looking to get their book published? What do you say to that?
Well, if you're looking to self-publish, which we've all done, that's a labor of love. My first book, I had someone suggest a literary agent, which they are pretty hard to find. But I started off sending manuscripts to different publishers. I average sending out my manuscript twice a week to different publishers until the book was finally finished, and I was sending it to publishers. And that's one way to go. And one of the things about sending it to publishers, probably half of them they're all going to send you notes. That's just the nature of what we do. And if you get a yes, it's it's kind of unusual. But what happens is they provide information. When I was sending out my first book, the publishers say, "I like your idea. This is good." That's on their form letter, because most of them send you form letters. And this is not what we do, but good idea. And as I said before, I had a mentor, this gentleman who was, Whitman Mayo, if you know him. He played Grady on Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
He owned a travel agency, and he did all this. He said, well, he's the one that suggested, and it was through him that it really the genesis for writing, because I saw him. I'm like, he got on a typewriter and started typing. I'm like, damn, right? A very, very talented brother, not only being an actor, an entrepreneur, but, I called him, and he always had suggestions, and he's the one that turned me on to the literary agent. And I was just following it. That particular time I was caring for my mom, so I had a lot of time to write. But one of the things that we do, and sometimes we don't understand it, every time we write a book, at least 3 or 4 of our friends, our fraternity brothers, will write one themselves and tell other people. We create this ourselves. This is this synergy from what we do, because all of us, we've written from here, right? Straight from the heart. And people read that. And so that's, for me, what happened. I shared that before. This was my first book. And it was originally called For Black Men Only. And the literary agent said, she loved the book. And she said, well, if you include women, make it a business book, I'll see what I can do. And she sold it to Putnam Publishing sight unseen, just because she told them what it was. And, they were, like I said, it was in every bookstore and library in the United States. Over 150 newspapers, every Black publication said something about the book. And a couple of them did excerpts of the book. But as we know, in the real world, that happens very seldom. But I was hooked on that process. So, I'm grateful and thankful, Brother Holiday, because this brother's on top of it. Not only you're doing the work, you stay on top of it, because writers are a different breed. And I'm appreciative of what you've done. But the book can be found on Amazon.com, and we're going to look to see about, doing more about getting it somewhere else. I did have it in Essewan, but they closed the doors.
Okay. All right.
But I'm looking to, get it out there.
Great. And Brother Simmons has been a project.
Of course.
We started this process of putting this programming together almost a year ago.
Right.
And forgive me, brothers, but Brother Simmons came on my radar as one of the first writers that I was given, and I talked to him, and I immediately wanted him to be part of this program, but it's taken a year. Yeah, he's been well worth the wait. Let me ask you this one quick follow-up question, so that the audience will know, and we'll be moving into Q&A shortly. In terms of cost, because people don't think about that, the cost of getting your book to market, what would you say you expended in terms of expense to get your book published?
My first book, not a lot, mostly time. My first book, because I sent it to him, you know, I paid, I had a person that did the editing, and you know, I paid her. So I got away with under 1,000.
Okay.
My third book, which is Caring for Parents, that cost me close to 6 G's. With
$6,000.
everything, yeah, with everything included. Because what I did when I came out, I rented the African American Museum for a night.
Oh, okay.
Which
all right.
meant that I had to do, and I hired a PR person that didn't do jack, which meant I did it, and it just wore me out, because you have to get a caterer, you have to rent the museum out for that whole evening, and I had a red carpet. So, and if you go to, you do Wilson Simmons III and you go and check it out, it's some of me speaking, but you do it when you do it on your own like that, which is what I did, you know, the outlay, because I had to get the museum, and you know, I had a jazz musician who was real hot at the time, and so that was music, and we had probably 300 or so people, and so, you know, close to that many books in that one evening, but it wore me out.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Glenn Hunter, approximately what has been your cost for getting your book to market?
Really, I approached this project with a DIY, do-it-yourself mindset. So,
Okay.
you know, really cash outlay was probably a little under $200. So
Wow.
really, it really wasn't that, but it was a lot of sweat, a lot of tears in there. And I think we all can attest to that. That can be painful at times. But yeah, it was DIY. The second book I did, actually I had to put a little bit more into it, using copywriters and having a few other experts put their spin on it. But you know, again, the passion just drives you. So that was my investment.
Okay, outstanding. All right, Charles Clemons, how much have you had to pony up to get your book to market?
Wow, when you say pony up, I tell you, well, we had some help, and honestly, the support that I received through friends and through associations, and also through my denomination, total cost to have it printed, to have the editing and so forth, and distribution aspects with Amazon and others, just under 2,000. And and looking back on it, just trying to learn those elements and grow and learn what it takes to do it if I were to come about and do it again. So roughly about under 2,000. Yep.
Okay. And Miguel, how much are you out of pocket for making it happen?
Millions. I'm just playing. No, it did not cost.
Yeah.
In terms of time, it took a lot of time, and my time is worth millions. That's the way I see it. However, the cost, the actual cost to me was minimal. My publisher paid for everything. They paid for the editing, they paid for distribution, they paid for absolutely everything. That's why it took me a couple of publishers. The other publishers did say yes, but their deal structure wasn't to my liking. So I found a publisher who was willing to outlay the cost, and that was one of the reasons why I went with that particular publisher.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you for sharing. We are going to move into Q&A, but let me share a few comments. One of our members in the audience is related to Mitt Whitman Mayo. He was her grandfather's first cousin. So
Wow.
that really doesn't surprise me, because she's always had star quality. So I'm encouraging her that she has stories that she needs to write. So we hopefully will get her on that trail. Also, people that are viewing us, look at some of the comments. I noticed that some of our previous writers who are members of the fraternity who have been on previous programs are on the chat. You might note their contact. Brother Colonel retired Gerald Curry is also owns a publishing company. So he is available to help any of those that are interested in having their books published. He also offers ghostwriting services, and I believe he has personally published 3 books. So also I see Larry Adams is also there in the audience. We appreciate them, and all the other folks that have. There was a comment that Brother Clemons, that you are a certain chapter's chaplain, and we needed to find our own chaplain. We couldn't have. But I'm just saying, if you can get a better offer.
Omicron mute. Yeah.
Okay, be that way. All right, let's look at some of the questions. We have a question from Ron Mubarak. Seeking networking with other fellow screenplay writers to connect towards a writer's room as well as novelists. You know, basically all our writers are available to be contacted through our social media. I'm not sure if you're interested in being a novelist. We have excellent resources with several of the brothers having actually self-published, and as I mentioned, Gerald Curry, and I'm drawing a blank, but we have another brother in San Antonio, Texas, who has assisted with publishing, and he's actually working with Brother Curry. All right, we have another question from Jetty VO asking, Brother Simmons, can you discuss a little bit more your first book?
Yes, it is. It was something that came to me, and you know, I was in college when President Kennedy was shot, so I go back a ways. So I happen to see all those guys like Stokely Carmichael and all of them live with some bros in San Jose. And for me, it was when my first job out of college was with Hallmark Cards. And I was the only Black person that worked in sales in the United States. And you see the changes, but the changes were slow. And I was the #1 salesman for the company for 2 years running. You think that would give me a promotion? Nah, that's not the way it works. So I wanted to give an idea, and I wrote this in my introduction. I was working for Levi Strauss, and I lived in Philadelphia, and I was on the bus, and an elderly Black man touched me on the shoulder. You know, I was in a suit, getting ready to go to one of my department stores with my briefcase just to talk, you know, something about stock and those kinds of things that you do with the executives. And he touched me on the shoulder. He said, "Young man," he said, "you make me real proud. You are what we work so hard for." Now that brought tears to my eyes. Wow. And I called my mother at home and told her that story. And that's what we've done. This is what we're doing. Because those that came before us, who knows, man? Every time we do what we're doing, we help one person. I remember writing and people said, "Well, have you ever written before?" And this and that. And once I wrote the book, I know 20 people personally that start writing. And 10 of them wrote books, right? Because they seem like, well, they're looking like, damn, Simmons wrote a book? If he can write a book, I know damn well I can write one. And that's how it is. It's all about just doing. And a lot of them call me. So, "Oh man, where do I go for this? And where do I go for that?" And these are fraternity brothers. And I was happy because that's what I get out of it. When you can help someone and you can direct them and say, well, how do I get this done? And you direct them, "Oh, And, they wrote their own books, man. And that's all it is. When they see you, I'm like, damn, Simmons wrote a book.
Okay. Well, don't sell yourself short. You and I have had many discussions, so I know a little bit more about you than probably anybody that's viewing. So, I know some of the things that you've done that you didn't talk about during your introduction. You've had an outstanding career, so we do appreciate you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question from Ethelene Sawyer. And let's have Charles Clemons answer this question. Did you write with your target audience in mind, or did you write to get the message out, however it unfolded?
Yeah, great question. Very much was aiming it at the church. I love the church. I'm part of the church, and just felt really a great deal of pain to see the silence of the church on issues of injustice. And so that's who the conversation really started with. But as time went on, it just shaped up to be a larger conversation around our history of racism. So was aiming in that direction. And to this day, there's still conversations that kind of stem from that. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, sir. And we will ask each of you this next question from Raphael Irving, whose name sounds so familiar. I don't know from where. I'm kidding. Are any of your books available as an audiobook? Miguel Sanchez.
Brother Irvin, My Sand, 2011. Yes, it is an audio book and is available on Kindle, soft copy, hard copy, all of the above.
Okay, great to know. Charles Clemons, is your book available on audible book?
No, it's not, but I definitely will look into it.
Okay, and Brother Curry was nice enough to, Martine Diop is the writer that I was trying to remember. He's working with Brother Curry on audiobooks. So maybe we'll put you in touch with him, and he can make that happen. And Glenn Hunter, are you available as an audible book?
I am not available on Audible book, but it's a conversation that keeps coming up. So I think I might be behind the curve on this one. So I am going to investigate it. But as of right now, no.
Okay. Again, Brother Martine Diop has done an audiobook and is working with Brother Curry, with Curry Brothers Publishing, on providing audio book services. So, we can make sure that you get that information. Okay, and we have a question from Andrew Thomas. Are you someone that has something to say, so you write it, or are you a writer that continues to write every day and often? And Miguel, let's have you answer that question.
I definitely had something to say. It was a burning inside of me that I felt as though it's our time. I think Brother Wilson touched on it not too long ago, but our ancestors and all of the people that came before us wanted to get us to the point of where we are now, and we are holding ourselves back to achieving all of the things that we could have possibly achieved. We have all of the resources. We have no excuses, none whatsoever. We have resources. We got Google. We can get just as much information just as quickly as anybody on this earth can. And in this country, and I've seen Black people all over the world, South America, Africa, in Europe, and everywhere where Black people are in the world, we are doing the best. Those Black people look to us as to, in the United States, Black people in the United States, they look to us as to what the future is going to be. I wrote the book to be able to help those who needed that extra push to do what they may not know that they are capable of doing. Even I didn't know. Even I didn't know that I was going to be on this Zoom call tonight. So things are still unfolding in my life as it is with everyone on this call. So I had a burning desire inside myself to get the message out.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. We do have a question in the chat from Roberta Vigilance. When writing your books, have you considered adding sponsors in your book or getting sponsors to buy your book in bulk? And she wants to direct that to everyone. So Wilson Simmons III, what's your response to Roberta's question?
I think that's a grand idea. Make sure she has my address. No, that's perfect. Yeah, I think that's great. Because there's so many groups out there that if someone can channel you to, because some people have little small groups, some have larger groups, that's half the battle. Because in our case, a lot of what we do is word of mouth. We have, the avenues of doing what we're doing here, but that's a fantastic idea because there are a lot of reading groups out there, and why not be a part of it? I think Oprah Winfrey has her own thing about that very subject.
Okay, outstanding. All right, very good. And Glenn, how would you respond to that regarding sponsors?
I do not have sponsors that are involved in my books right now. Something that's a little bit tangential. It didn't appear in this one, but it did appear in my novel, where I insert characters that are friends, just to give them a little bit of something, a little bragging rights, and it gives it a little bit more marketing pump when they're saying, "I'm in this book, you need to buy it." I don't share, but that has been an actionable tool. It's worked for me. I'll probably continue to do it in the fiction world, but from a nonfiction standpoint, I haven't used sponsors.
Okay. Miguel, have you considered sponsors or getting sponsors to buy your book in bulk?
I am always looking for a sugar mama corporation. Yes, always. No, but seriously though, I do have a local real estate company looking at my book to distribute to all of their new real estate agents as a motivational tool for them to stay the course as they become a realtor. I also have introduced my book to Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, and their public affairs person, we're in talks right now to have all of the Raiders have my book. And if they win a Super Bowl, it's because of me. But anyway.
I'm with you, man. 100.
So I just want y'all to know. So yes, we always looking for corporate sponsors as much as we can.
Okay, all right. So I should just put my money on the Raiders for the Super Bowl. All right, I got you.
If they get my book, if they get the book, they got to get the book first.
Okay, Charles Clemons, adding sponsors or getting sponsors to buy your books in bulk.
I'm all for it. I have not done it, and I'm just going to say a hearty ditto to what's been said. At this point, it's been through different networks, church networks, organizations, of course, the D9. But yeah, I want to definitely look into that too.
Okay. We had a couple of people who mentioned they were late or missed certain portions. Can everybody quickly just recap the name of your book and where it can be published? And yes, we should be posting this webinar on YouTube, so you will be able to watch it later if you are late in joining or you want to recommend it to someone. So let's start with Wilson Simmons III, the name of your book and where it can be published.
The name of the book is called Caring for Parents and Other Loved Ones, a Guide for the 21st Century. And you can purchase the book on Amazon and perhaps as we get together with these groups, it will open things up.
Okay, outstanding. Glenn Hunter.
Which again, yes, my book is Storytelling Wins the Best Engagements, and it is available at Amazon.com, both in Kindle version and paperback.
Okay, Charles Clemons.
Yes, indeed. Undivided, a biblical response to what divides us. You can find it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, ChurchLeadersNetwork.com, and also Walmart.com.
Okay, and finally, Miguel Sanchez.
Again, my book is called Make It Happen, a guide to making your dreams come true. You can find it on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and Barnes & Noble. It's available in Kindle as well as Audible.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We have someone who slid in with another question. Let's see. Okay, this is from one of our brothers, Ron Mubarak, and he says, will any of you be fellowshipping at the conclave? And it says a perfect place for a small pop-up on Black authors. Just saying. I know that at one of the district meetings, the 9th district meeting, 3 of the writers got together and did very well. In fact, I understand they all sold out of the books they brought. So there was some discussion about doing that. And then I got some information from one of the writers that I'm going to circulate to you in the next day or so. So let's start with Miguel. Will you be at the conclave?
You'll be able to find me at the conclave because the front of my purple t-shirt will have this on the very front of it. And on the back of my purple t-shirt will be a QR code. So you can just scan the QR code and go straight to my website and purchase the book. So I will be there and you'll recognize me by the purple shirt with my name and my book on the front.
Outstanding. Okay, Charles Clemons.
Unfortunately, I'll miss this year, but you certainly can look us up on Amazon.com. Sorry, brother, won't be there.
Okay, Glenn Hunter.
Yeah, and I will not be at the conclave, unfortunately, this year. So you'll have to find me on Amazon.com as well.
Okay, Wilson Simmons, the third.
I will not be at the conclave either this year. I will look forward to the next one.
Okay. Another question from NM initials. They want to know has anyone had any experience in the children's book market? And if so, any general suggestions or dialogue about your experiences with those publications getting to market? So Wilson, we got you here. So have you had any experience with children's books?
Nope, have not.
Okay, Glenn Hunter, any children's book experience?
I have to echo Brother Simmons. I have not had children's books experience, no.
Brother Clemons?
No, sir.
Brother Sanchez?
I have not, but my little niece has written 3 children's books.
Okay, do you have any information you can share from her experience? Or I'm assuming these books have all been published?
All 3 of them have been published. I just bought her last one, which is a workbook. The first one was Bree B's brother has a baby, or excuse me, Bree B has a baby brother. But her name is Brianna Taylor. She is the niece of Lawrence Taylor. And she's my niece, and she's actually Lawrence Taylor's niece too. So she's written 3 children's books and doing very well with it. As a matter of fact, I helped invest in her first book.
Let me ask you this, if you don't mind. And how old is she?
About 30, 31.
Okay. And any other information on who her publisher is, or promotions that she's done for her books or anything like that you can share?
I do know that her last book, this third one, she self-published. So
Okay.
I'm not sure who her first two publishers were, but I know the third one she self-published.
Okay, outstanding. All right, we do have another question, and I'll stay with you, Miguel, and we'll go through this one with everyone. Was your book dedicated to anyone?
Absolutely. I dedicated it to a couple of my frat brothers whom helped me through some very hard times when I was struggling and broke and busted and disgusted. And the very first person I dedicated to was my mother.
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln said, everything that I am and everything that I do is all because of my mother.
Okay.
And that was the very first person.
Okay, would you care to share the names of the other people that you dedicated the book to?
Brother Sean Jenkins out of Delta Iota Iota, Brother John Irving out of Delta Iota Iota, and Brother Kimmer Young out of Kai Nu, as well as another long friend of mine named Eric Price, whom happened to be Deputy Mayor of Washington, D.C. A very astute brother, a long friend that gave me a lot of advice.
Outstanding. Okay, and Charles Clemons, is your book dedicated to anyone?
Yes, it is. The three people: my father, Reverend Charles L. Clemons Sr., my mother, Cherry Eleanor Shepherd Clemons, and the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so just watching my mother and father embody the things that I wrote in the book, living and loving on us as a family, and also being willing to serve and advance justice in their sphere and their areas of influence really inspired me and continues. And of course, the writings and teachings of Dr. King. So those are the three that it was dedicated to.
Outstanding. Glenn Hunter, is anyone that you dedicated your book to?
Yes, my second book, which was is a Christian fiction book, is called A Word from the Voice. It was dedicated to my mother, and I dedicated it to her under the fact that when I was a child, I was born a storyteller, and I used to get beat mercilessly because of that. And once I started getting paid for telling stories, we had a good laugh. Ironically, my mother succumbed to cancer when she was about 2/3 through the book. She was very excited and very proud, and I'm sure she's finished reading it from above. But just sort of a story on top of a story. She did not quite finish it on Earth.
Okay. And Wilson Simmons III, is your book dedicated to anyone?
Yeah, my first book was dedicated to my mother, and she had a chance to see that. And Caring for Parents is dedicated to Cecilia Jean Simmons. There's a wife who died much too young.
Okay. And this may likely, well, I don't know. We allocated about 30 minutes for questions. I don't see any other questions besides this one is maybe the last question we might have. And that is, what impact has writing your book had on your personal life? Wilson, let's start with you.
Well, it's such a feeling of accomplishment. I can't, it's hard for me to explain writing a book with your own idea. And that came from the first book. And listening to the naysayers. Well, how do you know it's going to be a book? Or, well, have you written a book before? On and on and on. And then to see the book, and let me tell you, it was in every bookstore and every library. But the thing that got me more than anything, I was going back to NYU. They wanted me to come and speak. And I thought, well, gee, I'm in the airport. Let me go see. And I asked myself, you have this book by this guy, some guy named Wilson Simmons. I think it's something about Inside Corporate America. And they had 3 copies. That wigged me out more than seeing it in the libraries, Barnes and Noble, anything. I'm like, you got it at the airport? Right? So, yeah, it's still to this day, when I tell that story, I just like, do you have it? And they had it. So, Putnam, they know what they're doing.
Okay, great. Uh, Glenn Hunter, has your book had any types of impact on your life since having it published?
An unforeseen benefit has moved me a little bit away from my books, but one of the things is I'm an author, and you go on down that path. So now I'm actually doing some ghostwriting, which the beauty of it is, and the economics of it, I get paid up front for ghostwriting. I don't have to wait for someone to go and click on it in Barnes and Noble or Amazon. So that's been an unexpected blessing that I'm able to get paid on the front end as I'm developing books for other people.
Okay, outstanding. Charles Clemons, same question. How's the writing your book impacted your life?
A couple of ways, but one, in many ways, therapeutic. Just something that's so heavy on my heart, and being able to sit down. And I appreciate the STEAM panel and what Brother Hunter said, getting words on paper. And it just found being able to sit back and look at this and sort through it. So just from a sense of processing life and history and asking questions, and then researching, like, why are all the churches divided? Why is it 2022, most segregated hour in America is 11 o'clock? Why is it like that? And how did we get that way? So it really became therapeutic just to just pour out what was inside. But then the side benefit, which I'm growing, is that someone actually was interested in it and enough to pay for it, and also and to be asked to speak on those things. Now, I haven't said that. I have to admit that wasn't really the first thing on my mind, but at the same time, seeing that it was a message that needed to be heard and wanted to be heard, and this started even further conversations. And so, just briefly, having conversation with denominational leaders, pastors, leaders, people in law enforcement, because if I have a racist bent, or if I have any bigotry towards any ethnic group and I'm in leadership, that affects the people that are in whatever sphere that I'm in. So that's what it seemed like, what was inside that I wanted to deal with, others are wanting to deal with too, but in a place where they can feel safe enough to ask hard questions or give feedback too. So that's how it's impacted my life.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Miguel Sanchez, how has your book impacted your life?
Well, I can tell you just a quick story. I was in the club with a frat brother of mine talking, and a girl walked up and she started talking to both of us. And she asked the frat brother, "Well, what do you do?" And he said, "Well, I'm in pharmaceutical sales." And then she looked at me and she said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm an author." And she turned her whole body and turned her back on my other frat brother and started just talking to me. So yeah, I'm like G Money in New Jack City. I got my every day. Oh Lord, they done changed my life. You tell them you're an author, but seriously, I joke a lot, but seriously, it has added a new dynamic onto my life, because I'm asking to get paid speaking engagements, as well as promotions to do my book. This takes up more time than I had done before. I hadn't done these kind of things. I'm getting interviews on radio stations. I've done several radio interviews, so it's just added another layer, actually another 2 layers. Speaking and the sale of the book itself has just changed my life entirely. So I'm really happy, and just the fact that you've accomplished something, and an overall feeling of empowerment because you've done something, and feeling proud about yourself. So that you and when I made it happen, realizing that anybody can make it happen.
Okay, outstanding. Okay, we are at our end. I do want to re-emphasize once again that we are asking you to support our writers by simply purchasing a book. So if you can simply do that, and they've told you on a couple of occasions where the books can be published. Again, I want to thank again the folks that have really contributed to putting this project together. However, I do have a glaring omission. I want to personally thank and recognize Donovan Bell. He was one of the first people to get on board and help us with the IT portion of putting this together, because we have people from, not only do we have people from all over the country, we have international. We have one of our writers who's been living in Shanghai, China since 2002 that was on one of them. And Donovan has done an outstanding job keeping us on point and operating and running, because I recognized immediately that was not a strong point for me. And he has voluntold Allison Reed, who's now taken over that responsibility. And we want to thank Allison for his contributions to keeping us running and handling all kinds of technical issues. So with that, we are going to close out Omega Writers Series number 4. We do have 3 or 4 writers potentially set up for our 5th installment. We have not formalized that date. It will likely be in the fall, but we want to let all of you know that we will be promoting that event, bringing on some additional outstanding writers for you to learn from. So with that, we're going to say goodnight and thank you very much for joining us. And
Thanks, brothers. We got to figure
All
out a way. I know Jerry will do it, that we can all exchange books, man.
Yes.
You guys got it going on, man.
Yes.
All right.
Brothers. Yes,
Thank you
indeed.
very much, man. Appreciate
okay.
it.
All right, folks.
Thank you, Brother
brothers.
Holiday.
Brothers, appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Brother Hunter, Brother Simmons,
Yeah.
and Miguel.
Okay. All right, very much so. It's been a pleasure working with each of you. And we'll be talking with you further, because we do have some other things we're going to make you aware of to help you in your marketing and promotion of your books. So, okay, good night, everyone. And again, if you need to reach us, just go to Omega Black Writers on Instagram or Facebook and give us a message and we will respond promptly. Okay, good night, everyone. Take care.
All right.
All right, bros.